guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a fun video for you that attempts to answer the question, is Shudder worth it? And in the very beginning of the video, I want to let you know that this video is not sponsored by Shudder in any way. I have no affiliation, no communication with them whatsoever. I have not consulted with them. This is just my own opinion at home as a horror fan. Many of you remember the Halloween scary movie guides that I've posted every single year and some of the scary movie nights on Amazon Prime streaming through Twitch, and Shudder seemed like the perfect thing for me because it's advertised as the premier horror streaming service. So today we're going to talk everything about the platform. We're going to talk about its library size, its price. We're going to talk about some of the technical aspects of the platform and just sort of try to do a good job to review all aspects of Shudder if you were going to pay for it. If you like scary movies, if you're one of those basement-dwelling troglodytes that just loves watching Friday the 13th Part 6, or you just like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or you want to see Annabelle Part 7, or something like that, then you would probably think, oh yeah, it's probably on Shudder, because Shudder's where all the scary movies are, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not true. So I bought Shudder without really browsing their library, just assuming that them being a smaller platform meant that they could just buy all the scary movies. Weirdly, Amazon Prime used to own most of them, but then they got bought by Paramount Plus and a couple of other streaming services. There's like this weird sort of arms race on getting all the scary movies because apparently people watch them when they're free. And Shudder is a very, very, very small fish in this pond, and the content that they have available honestly is kind of like the independent film channel. Do you guys remember like satellite days where you had IFC, the independent film channel, nothing but low budget indie films of highly variable quality? Well, Shudder is basically that, but every independent film is going to be a scary one. And the library is honestly kind of small compared to Netflix, Paramount, Amazon. The library is relatively tiny. I mean, there's still a couple hundred, maybe just shy of 1,000 total titles, but that's nothing compared to Netflix or Crunchyroll or other streaming services that have like tens of thousands of random things that you can dig through. Most of the films on Shudder are independent films, or at least low budget, even if they are involved with a studio, and a number of them are foreign productions as well. A lot of foreign films there. However, they do have some originals, and I gotta say the Shudder originals are all really good. I think they're spending all of their money buying the Shudder originals because the Shudder originals are super interesting, and we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about those today. And I think they're interesting because as a person, I realize that I really enjoy edgy media. There's something about watching something that feels dirty, feels wrong, feels naughty, like you're not supposed to. Some kind of media that has a little bit of viciousness, a little bit of bite to it, a little bit of kind of offbeat. The definition of edgy isn't the emo teen that cuts himself. Rather, it's at the forefront of a trend or experimental or avant-garde. And the number one rule of things that I watch in my house, as we've discussed from previous videos about furry anime, is that it can't be boring. I will not watch something that is boring. And I maybe it's my attention span is too small, or maybe I'm desensitized or whatever. Sometimes it takes a little bit more than whatever Hawkeye or The Mandalorian is doing to kind of get my attention with a streaming service. Now, Shudder is unique on this because they have a near monopoly on edgy media. Anything that is too out there, too violent, too crazy to be picked up by Netflix or Amazon or really any TV network, Shudder will show up with a check and be like, let's make it an original. And a lot of people take that money, and you've kind of got a bizarre but fun collection of stuff going on Shudder. That's the aspect of the platform that I think I like the most. The best way to think of it, it's a slightly more curated version of the independent film channel with a focus on horror. Most of the movies are going to be like old classics, like stuff from the 50s to the 70s and 80s, or the brand new Shudder originals. Not too much in the 90s and 2000s because those cost too much to license. They have audio plays, they have originals, they have animations. The audio dramas are very interesting. A couple of documentaries we're going to talk about. They run 3 live streams at all times. One is their originals, the next one is slashers, and then finally there's the Ghoul, or the Ghoul log. It's just a pumpkin that just sits there and burns and plays little bits of music like a lo-fi channel kind of, which is an unusual thing to put on a service that you pay for. So far into this video, I've basically been bashing on Shudder and saying some things that will make you not want to purchase this streaming service. So now's the time where I get to show you the things that I've been watching on my Shudder account, and they're kind of crazy. 2 of these you've definitely seen before on the Halloween horror movie guide. I watched Slacks, which was about the killer pair of jeans. for like a little bit, and then it turned into this absolutely brutal corporate satire that made me feel bad about myself. I watched VHS 94, which I just gushed about on the Halloween review because the middle segment with the Indonesian one was just so amazing, so good. I just finished watching a Nicolas Cage movie, Color Out of Space, which is very authentic to the original Lovecraft novel, and that makes it a very mean and brutal movie. Color Out of Space is probably one of the better movies on Shudder in terms of quality of acting, actors, special effects, overall cinematography, and all that kind of stuff. But it's a tough one to watch. I can definitely see why other streaming services didn't want to pay for it. It's not a happy ending kind of film. Oddly, there's a lot of Nicolas Cage movies on here. There's another one called Prisoners of the Ghostland. It's a Japanese art house film. It's terrible. Don't watch that. Skip that one. I sat down and I watched Dogs Don't Wear Pants, which I'm going to show you a tiny bit of the trailer of right now.
Mä haluaisin nähdä sitä uudestaan.
Koirat seiso kahdella jalalla.
Asia on niin, että mä oon tavannut.
Yeah, this is a Finnish film that I watched with subtitles about a heart surgeon who falls in love with a dominatrix and tries to get the dominatrix to kill him by increasing the amount of torture and dom stuff because he doesn't want to live. And it's this weird coming of age film and family drama thing and a love story. And then there's this horror BDSM element to it. Very graphic, very crazy. Oddly good if you don't mind an art house film. Speaking of which, the next one on the list is pretty artsy. Day of the Beast, an Italian film about a priest who discovers exactly when the Antichrist will be born, but in order to gain access to the Antichrist to kill him, he has to commit as many sins as possible to make Satan trust him. It's a very silly premise, but they play it very seriously, and it's like an R-rated, very dark, edgy kind of comedy. It ends up being like him and a metalhead and a fake TV psychic trying to take down Satan, which was really fun. I did watch Southbound, which is probably the overall best film on this entire list, at least the smartest, most competently made. It's a little horror anthology thing, 3 or 4 short stories about people that get trapped in a sort of purgatory out in the desert and don't even know it, and they're forced to relive their sins over and over again. That's the very simple version. This is a very smart film that I could do a very long breakdown on, but I enjoyed it. Watched a very good documentary called Horror Noir about the history of black people in horror and a little bit about black film in general, which was not only well made, but also very enlightening. And they even go back to the 1800s to talk about Birth of a Nation, which I'm not going to show you a single screenshot of because I'd like this video to be monetized. I watched a Shudder original called Vicious Fun about, I think it was a horror movie novelist who stumbled into a support group for serial killers and had to pretend to be a serial killer so they wouldn't murder him. Very fun, good comedy. My wife enjoyed it too. One of the things that we enjoyed together, I never thought I'd watch in my life, is Dragula. And I know that that's going to be a little bit embarrassing on a gaming channel or whatever. This is something that I knew beans about. I'd maybe seen the name once or twice. I literally booted it up and played it to do a bandwidth test and to like test some settings and stuff, which we'll talk about later. And I just got sucked in. Dragula is the craziest, weirdest reality TV show that I've ever seen in my life. I don't know, it's one part of it is like a fashion show, but you have to be scary and in drag. And then the other part of it is like Fear Factor, where they'll take 6 drag queens and bury them alive or make them eat pig brains. Or that at one point they put them in this like rotating room, like from Inception. They just walked in and then the whole room started spinning. And all the drag queens were like bouncing around and slamming into things. And it was kind of like the lottery where they draw the balls from it. So it's like this weird Fear Factor and also RuPaul Drag Race thing going together, but super R-rated and insane. And I just kind of couldn't stop watching it for some particular reason. Another fun one we watched was Ghost Killers versus Bloody Mary, which is definitely going on next year's Halloween review list. This is a Brazilian film about YouTubers that fake ghost encounters. Like there's a whole, because there's a whole genre of YouTubers that fake ghost stories and stuff. And they get hired by a school to do like a fake seance and exorcise a ghost, but it turns out to be real. And you've probably seen that plot before, but probably not one a fraction this violent. And then finally, I got bamboozled into watching a film that was advertised as a scary movie called After Midnight, made by the fantastic team that works on The Endless, which I think I recommended in a different horror movie guide. And it was really like a love story with like 5 minutes of monster stuff. It was still good, it's just something I wouldn't have watched otherwise. So yeah, as you can see from my list, I've got a lot of edgy, violent, crazy, weird media, and that's not what I sit here and watch every single day. That stuff will melt your brain if you watch that all the time. But about once or twice a week, I'm really in the mood to watch some crazy stuff. I want to see something I have never seen before and is shocking. And Shudder has a ton of that. So if you're just bored of Netflix, if nothing is violent enough for you, if you've seen every trope and you can predict every plot and you think you've seen it all, Shudder's probably the place for you. It's gonna hit you with some bizarre stuff, and if you're like me, you'll probably find it interesting. That's not all we got to talk about though. I got to talk about the technical side of this streaming service. Shudder is very small, and because of that, they probably have the least features and are the simplest of all the streaming services that I currently own. They broadcast, as far as I'm aware, basic 1080p plus subtitles. I don't think that it's in 4K. Could be wrong on that one. Compression is very basic. Audio is very basic. Options and features all very, very basic. It streams and it plays, and that's kind of what it does. You can play it on PC just fine. It works on Roku TVs. It works on most smart TVs that I've tried. Mobiles just fine. And it will work on Chromecast, but Chromecast is kind of buggy. I don't know why it just doesn't cooperate. You'll get logged out of your Chromecast and have to out of Shudder on Chromecast and have to log back in pretty often. As a matter of fact, I've just had to log into Shudder quite a lot. It just logs me out for no particular reason. And the basic features that it have, I would compare it to Crunchyroll. Like Crunchyroll just barely plays anime, and that's what it does. Shudder's kind of the same thing. It doesn't really save your place in the movie you were watching. It doesn't necessarily remember the episodes that you played. If you pause it for too long, it might freeze. A little weird like that. But it basically just plays on your TV. The whole features, the whole platform is designed to be no frills, no extras. Just hit a button and it mostly just plays on the TV. So nothing super fancy going on there. And then finally, I want to talk about the price. It's $5.99 a month as of recording this video, and if you do a yearly plan, you get a pretty significant savings. It goes down to $56.99 a month, which is I think like a couple months off roughly. It's like getting a month, 2 months for free-ish. So compared to other services, that's very inexpensive. I think HBO Max is like really expensive. Even YouTube Premium is $12 a month. I'm not sure. Crunchyroll costs more. Netflix definitely costs more. So compared to other services you have to pay for, Shudder is very, very inexpensive, and that makes sense given the library and the size of them. However, there are tons of promos online. There's always these coupons and deals and stuff from various YouTubers, which that's eventually how I decided to sign up for it, to like Coupon Cabin. I've seen them 5% off, 20% off, 35% off, 90% off. I can't even remember which coupon I used, but I think I got one, so I got like a whole year of streaming for like $38, something like that. So the price is very small. It's peanuts compared to everything else. And for me personally, I'm very happy with my purchase. For my $40, I have been shown some crazy stuff. My mind has been blown and expanded, especially when I'm using Delta 8 here and I'm a little bit high. It's all very crazy, very fun. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Didn't think I would. I was initially very upset when I bought it and I saw how small the library is, but there's some real gems in that library. So if you, like me, are a messed up person who enjoys scary movies and nothing mainstream is scary or interesting enough for you, Shudder will have something that'll light your world up, I guarantee you. So that's my take on the entire service. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful. I know it's a little bit random for a gaming channel, but it's just something that's on my mind. And I think I'm just going to be reviewing like a lot of things in the future, not just streaming services or media, but just lots and lots of different things, because I have fun analyzing and picking them apart. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.